Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I'm, of course, Nick McDaniel, and as always, I am joined by Money Myron.
Hey, folks. By the time you hear this, hopefully I will not be dead. I am currently on my deathbed, but I crawled off of it because I love our listeners so much. I'm currently also full of shit as usual. Back to recording. How you doing, Nick?
Oh, man, we're hanging in there. Been a long weekend. It was, of course, Wrestlecade weekend. We will discuss some of that at the end of the show as one of the topics there. Look, there was so much news over the weekend, dude. It was like we were bombarded with everything you could probably mention.
You know, CM Punk, you'd already gone up to the room, and I was in the bar when the CM Punk thing happened. That was like being in some kind of lab experiment in the bar went, ah! But nobody knew why because people were doing it on their phone. And then 15 seconds later, somebody else on their phone went, ah! It was kind of cool, but it was different than they had it on the TV.
Yeah, it was because they had crappy, if you had a slower internet, then you were delayed, you were seconds behind. And so, yeah, it was just totally different. But I had gone up. I wanted to catch the end of it. That's I had went up and I was watching it on my phone, of course, when everything broke down. And we're going to discuss all of that as much. But before we get started, we always like to remind everybody who's listening or watching, make sure you're subscribing somewhere, anywhere, whether it's a podcast, but a lot of people do like the YouTube channel, youtube.com. The handle is @TappedOutPod. Make sure you're liking it, subscribing to it, turn your notifications on. Hell, become a member, get the show early as well, all that good stuff. And, of course, look, we still got that Patreon rolling over there as well. So if you want to join up over there on Patreon, it's the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. Do the search over there, too. That works for you as well. But like we said, man, there's tons of news, tons of big major things going on. And, it was crazy because we were discussing Barry Sanders a little bit last week and how he faxed his resignation, essentially, as you could call it. And I made a joke to somebody that this week, essentially, I felt like the same thing happened. QT Marshall basically just quietly, while the world is abuzz about returns and debuts and all the chaos is going on, just quietly just slid his resignation post on social media. And I wondered if he just kind of thought like, hey, it'll quietly slip through and nobody will notice. And I messaged some people when I read it. I'm in a group and I texted and said, hey, I don't think you guys realize like how big of a deal this is. And it's almost like, do you feel like people just outside of wrestling and maybe even outside of, AEW just don't get how big a deal QT Marshall resigning and leaving AEW is?
How many shows did they say he formatted, Nick?
I think it's like over 750 shows that he's formatted for them.
That's a weekly show. And let's say doing one show a week for a long time, that's a lot of years worth of shows.
Well, I mean, you got to factor. I mean, it's been Dynamite, Rampage, Collision, lots, and I mean lots of shows. And, somebody was like, well, if they, and obviously there were haters, if you want to call them that. I don't want to call them that. Just somebody that just doesn't like AEW. Let's just hypothetically say that's somebody, right? And they're like, yeah, but the shows weren't that good. Okay, my point was, that's not that's creative's issue. The good and the bad is creative. The formatting the show and making sure it's going to hit the times and a lot of that, like that's a different, painstaking process in itself. So it's not as simple as like, it wasn't like he was the head, creative idea person, but you still got to make that shit like the whole like, hey, I've been handed, 20 pounds of shit. I got to stand in at 5 pounds, or I got 20 pounds of good shit and I got to stand in. It still doesn't matter. It's still the formatting of it can make it, better or worse at times. And I just think he's done so much more. And like, for it to be something as simple, like, look, by the way, I'm prefacing, I guess, and I didn't really think about this, but somebody messaged me and I was kind of like, I think we have to preface this. This is not something we have been told directly.
No.
So, I mean, I want to make that clear, like, because somebody did ask me.
People realize we know QT Marshall personally. We were friends with QT Marshall before AEW. We would go down to his school when he had shows. We would talk to him. You've been to his house. What we learned was QT Marshall, if he has a problem with you or he doesn't like what you're doing, he will tell you to your face. QT Marshall is a no bullshit, and he's had to put up with doing this. So if he hasn't liked it, it's been eating at him. If he didn't like the direction the company was going, it's been eating at him. And I will tell you from the bottom of my heart, my belief is losing QT Marshall is a bigger loss than CM Punk ever dreamed of losing. Losing CM Punk was maybe a bigger loss than Cody. But the thing is, CM Punk wasn't connected there. Cody and QT Marshall run in the same circles. When you went to QT Marshall's house, who was there also, Nick?
Oh, I don't want to give too much stuff
away.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. No, I can't discuss a ton of that part, but my point being is, like, we come back to the rumors are, and I'm prefacing this as rumors. This has not been anything told directly. There was a change of vision. There was, maybe it's time to move on. We've heard, hey, he wanted to. By the way, I'm gonna throw an editorial here. When we heard, hey, he wanted to be a wrestling star. Clearly, that wasn't happening in AEW. I don't know if somebody didn't see him that way or whatever. But so maybe it's time, because look, if you haven't seen a documentary about him, it's phenomenal. QT's a guy who's willing to bet on himself, double down and go, like, I'm gonna make it work, and I'm gonna make it work my way. Like, so that's, look. So if the vision, here's the thing, if the vision's changed, somebody asked us, what's the new vision? I'm like, okay, well, from the looks of it, again, not being told directly, it looks like it's turning into Ring of Honor New Japan. And what I mean by that is, and it's, by the way, that's not derogatory, because some people took it that way when I said it to them. No, it's they're focusing on match quality, best wrestlers in the world, quote unquote. And I'm really, because they're talking about guys who get in the ring and wrestle. Like, they want, that Ring of Honor style, New Japan style match. Look, can QT go in the ring? 110%. But he's also a guy who realizes you got to have a character, you got to have a story, there's more to wrestling than just we can get in there and wrestle.
QT took a chance and moved to Atlanta and started a wrestling school that turned out to be one of the biggest wrestling schools and one of the best wrestling schools in the country, and then partnered with Cody Rhodes. Okay? QT Marshall is that damn good. QT Marshall is a leader, and I believe some of the talent from AEW, some of the bigger talent, will follow him just because he's not there to help them. He will be able to help people pull off stuff, format stuff, and just having them there improve the product. So,
and listen, to prove our point, I was super happy to see all of the love that was being just, poured out to him on social media. It was people, because here's the thing, it's kids he taught, people he helped get an opportunity to, even top guys like Taz, putting stuff out there. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, kids that came through the school or whatever. Lots of people realize, how valuable he is, that are in the business. So I think, look, there's going to be a great landing spot for him, and we kind of talked about it off air. Where do you think it'll happen? Like, hey, does he go? Does Cody have enough pull that he gets him something? And I pushed back to somebody who said that and said, I don't know. How about maybe he gets the opportunity on his own merits? I mean, it doesn't hurt to have somebody say, like, hey, why don't you bring him in and, give him a shot? It's not like there's not tape out there at this point.
Yeah. His leadership is worthwhile. But if he wants to wrestle, he's a valuable asset anywhere in the country. And there are guys like Cardona that are making their living doing that right now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think he's got the opportunity. I said that to somebody. I was like, I could see him as a, another, like, and I don't mean like the style, but just I could see him as another Cardona, where he's out there on the road and he's getting, he can make a name, he's making the money. Or I know he's being used up in Canada. I mean, he was just a champion down in AAA. I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe he becomes the American Star that they have, in AAA. One of those. There's always having, guys go down there. Or maybe he focuses on the school. Maybe he becomes a coach at NXT. Maybe he becomes a producer. Because look, that people often don't realize that he is so good at the producing side, that maybe he becomes one of those, people within, whether it's Impact or if it's WWE, NXT, whatever. I think here's the great thing about it, and we're going to end it on this note. He could wrestle if he wants to wrestle, and I think he could be a star. If he can go into production, he'll do great at that. He could go into coaching, and he'll do great at that. So I think he has diversified himself in his career enough that I think he's going to have a really good landing, whatever he chooses to do in the long run.
Yes.
So
he's blessed with a wonderful, loving, supportive wife that will stick with him through all of this. So more power to you, QT.
Yeah. So hopefully that'll all, pan out, and I'm sure it will. Now, of course, that other guy, this other news that we had break over that, CM Punk officially returned at Survivor Series while we were out of town. I have to walk the fine line with CM Punk. Everybody's fully aware of my takes on CM Punk. Let me get the disclaimer out of the way. I have always said I think CM Punk's overrated, and I still do. Doesn't mean I don't think he's good. Doesn't mean I think I don't think he's very good. I just think he's overrated, and that's, by the way, there's a whole story behind that. Go back into our, go back into the library. You'll hear it 100 times over. He got a mega reaction because now I'm going to give the guy all the props for what he's pulled off over the weekend. Mega reaction. Bully, by the way, it was kind of funny. Was discussing this and talking about how lucky is CM Punk that every time he does a debut or he does a return, just seems to be in Chicago. So he gets this massive reaction from his hometown and stuff like that. And, and my wife went, is that really luck? Or do you think it's intentional? Like, is he a smart enough man to figure this stuff out? And I was kind of like, yeah, there might be some truth to that. Because, look, the next night Myron on Raw, and I'm not crapping on it, by the way, he still got a great reaction on Raw, but it wasn't the reaction he got on Survivor Series.
I will tell you flat out, that promo kind of made me like him. That promo made me warm up to him. After years of being negative towards CM Punk, I really enjoyed the promo he did Monday night. Somewhere in my little black heart, it, like the Grinch, it grew a few sizes that day. Am I going to enjoy him? I don't know. Am I going to think he's a great wrestler? I don't know. But I did warm up to him a little bit after that promo. It was pretty good. I don't know about all the sitting down stuff. The sitting down stuff never worked for me. But let's see what happens.
Look, I know a lot of people pushed back on the promo, and they really thought he was going to come out there and just shit all over AEW, and I'm like, dude, that was never going to happen. I don't know why anybody ever thought that was going to happen. It was a WWE promo, I will say that, and some people thought that was a negative. I'm like, no, it was short, it was to the point, and it left more story to be told down the road. If he comes out there and he just for 25 minutes and talks, everybody's like, well, that's just strength is on the mic. Just because it's your strength doesn't mean you gotta talk for 25 minutes. How about you just go out there and be effective for 8? I mean, that's okay. As far as the whole AEW stuff, I'm like, look, we've talked about this forever. AEW essentially doesn't live in the WWE universe. Like, they'll acknowledge New Japan, they'll acknowledge, and they'll talk about it, obviously, if the questions are asked at press conferences and things like that. But it's always back to, Coke doesn't talk about Pepsi. Hell, they sure as hell don't reference RC Cola. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm sure there was that conversation. Like, look, I can see, and I can hear this conversation whether I know it happened or I don't. I can see Triple H going, before you go out there with a live mic, you understand, we don't talk about them. They don't exist. It's like Marvel characters don't talk about DC characters, in their movies. Why? Because they don't exist in our universe. That's why. So now at times they have, but again, through the promo, he set the table. He's got a whole bunch of things down the road and let the stories play out versus just kind of throwing it all out there. But I mean, dude, I will like I said, I'm going to give him his credit. The social media numbers were crazy. Just all of the stuff. Like apparently he's the number one merch mover in AEW and WWE at the same time. Tip of the cap, dude. That's impressive. I won't lie to you. That's impressive. Here's the problem. What does that say about WWE? And what does that say about AEW that your top merch mover hasn't been there in how long? There's my concern. Where does it go? Where's it, because, we'll share these thoughts, I'm sure. I think the big difference is we'll see where it's at in 6 months. We said that when he showed up in AEW. We said that when he returned the last time. Time will tell where he sits, in his place. The great thing for CM Punk, they don't need him to be a savior in, WWE. He just needs to be another piece of the puzzle and, another cog in the machine that is just freaking rolling. By the way, totally will tip my cap to 1.89, and I'm rounding 1.88 million people watched Raw. That is non-Monday Night Football, year, numbers. So kudos. Was Punk worth 400? Is Randy chop liver? We're going to discuss him in a second. I think he would like to think he helped a little bit. But I think Punk's, but here's the thing. If that's the AEW base that just kind of, I got to see what happens when he shows up. That, by the way, in my opinion, that's the crowd that was chasing hey, we want him to shit all over him. Because what do we always talk about? There's a big base of that WWE crowd. Doesn't even watch AEW. Notice that, so they don't even know all that drama that happened. So.
I was just watching for R-Truth.
Yeah, exactly. And dude's still money. He's just still money. Speaking of money, Myron.
Ruffles. Do the Ruffles shuffle.
R-Truth coming back, I thought would be the headline, but then, of course, QT and CM Punk were the big ones. But also, by the way, look, how about last week, dude? There was a shit ton of football. We got 3 games on Thursday, a game on Friday, college games galore on Saturday that mattered, and then Sunday, and then, of course, Monday. So I'm like, dude, can we have our lives back? But, of course, during that whole period, not only was we playing fantasy football, Nick's always got that app broken out for Prize Picks, getting that money, getting those bets in over the weekend as well. Because not only could I play for one day, I could play literally all of those days. I got options to play. And if you're a betting person, check out our friends over at Prize Picks.
You still working on this?
It's 2 minutes to kickoff. Who do I pick?
2 words, Prize Picks. It's so easy. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. It's just you against the numbers. Simply pick the over-under on 2 or more players, and that's it. You can win up to 10 times your money in just one day. Join over 150,000 people who found a better way to play. Download the Prize Picks app today and get your first deposit match up to $100.
That's right, man. Make sure you're checking our friends over at Prize Picks out. And, of course, we also, while we're taking a break here in between, we're going to talk a little Randy Orton in a second. But, man, let's also plug our team that we love to death, jmartinandcompany.com. Pressure washing, window cleaning. They'll do your driveway. They'll do your house. They'll do your gutters, your roof, everything all on one time. Not just residential, but commercial as well. And, man, I especially look, all the builders that are out there, people that do subdivisions and things like that, you can contract them to come in and do your neighborhoods, all that stuff. Just, man, check them out at jmartinandcompany.com, jmartinandcompany.com. You can find them on Facebook or on the website. I always go through Facebook and just send them a message. They're really quick on responding that way and checking them out, man. jmartinandcompany.com.
You'll never find anybody that handles a hose as good as Jamie.
That's correct. And speaking of looking good, man, Jiminy Christmas, Randy Orton returns at Survivor Series, and dude looked amazing.
Thor. Did he look like Thor? Did he look like what other superhero? Holy shit snacks. When I saw Randy, I was like, well, it's over for the rest of the guys in that cage. Well, it's all done. And that little JD feller took that RKO from the top of the cage. That's some coordination right there. You ain't telling me they ain't been practicing that. I'm going to tell you, it's a work that they had to practice that. That was pretty special. That was pretty special. I sat there and I was like on my deathbed watching it on my iPad, and I was like, oh, give me my inhaler. Oh, no. Randy about killed a man. You saw him in that neck brace. Holy shit, Nick. That was amazing. I love that pay-per-view. I could have been more happy with that pay-per-view.
Oh, yeah, it was a great pay-per-view top to bottom. And we're talking about like his, he did look in phenomenal shape, and it was a group text I'm in. Somebody said something, and I'm like, dude, when you're out with an injury, you're not getting tested for PEDs. It's a beautiful thing. I'm kidding. He probably worked really hard naturally and gotten that kind of
thing. Those are healing medications.
That's
Randy
right.
would never touch those things.
Dude, he had like fucking fusion surgery. I could see him telling him he needed the steroid. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Fusions. Yeah, so I'm saying, okay, I can see they were like, hey, man, you need a little bit of the juice to, heal up real quick.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. It was prescribed, I'm sure. But listen, I have said for just years upon years, I still to this day, he is probably just the most, and it's the craziest thing. I feel like Randy can just kind of like roll out of bed, shake it off, and get into the ring and just have a spectacular match.
I mean, I'm not gay, but I might be tempted to be one of those guys that rubs the oil on him before he goes down to the ring. I mean, he's as shiny as hell. Look at that man.
But he's so just naturally fluid. Like he reminds me of the Barry Windham back in the day about he's all of that. Oh yeah. He's I would love to have that debate with somebody though about which one of those two is the most naturally gifted out of those two down the road. But I like where they're going. They're doing some good callbacks. We teased a little bit last week when they announced who the team thing was. Jay looks a little nervous. Then Randy cuts the promo. He's got issues with the bloodline, all of them. And I love the way he was like, all of them. Then Jay comes back there and kind of like, hey, man, we good? I'm trying to change. I just really like they're like not washing things. Because listen, there was a time period in WWE, they were washing shit that happened 3 weeks ago. Like, oh, this never happened. You didn't see that. That didn't happen. And now we're referencing stuff that's, year and a half, 2 years, 3 years back in stories. And I'm like, look, from a comic book nerd, like that's a good thing. We like that type of stuff. I mean, where do you think we go from here, though, man? I mean, look, he looks like he's going to feud with Judgment Day. Does he maybe get involved and try to steal the Money in the Bank from Damian Priest?
Wait till Friday. This week's Smackdown is going to be terrific. When Paul comes out on Friday, and is Randy going to go to Friday? That's where we're going to find out.
He's on Raw for whatever that means.
The Judgment Day is on wherever they need to be because those tag team belts. But the Bloodline is on Friday.
Yeah. So time will tell. Look, all I'm saying is, I think they kind of had no choice but to make him a babyface when he returned because everybody knew he was going to get that babyface reaction when he came. But, now that he's back, I think everybody knows the turn's coming, right? It just has to be. He's 100% better as he's a heel. Does he end up chasing Seth? Does he end? There's just so many different directions. Is he going for Roman? Because listen, I could honestly 100% see either side him going for. How long have we said? Like, I think Randy's the guy to beat Flair's record. I don't care how he gets there, whether it's through Seth, whether it's through Roman. Keep racking them up and chase this down. Because hell, Randy, he thinks he's got 10 years left. From the way he talks, I got 10 years left to rock and roll. So I don't know, man. What do you think?
I think, the Bloodline the whole thing has ran its course. Jay being out has been a big, big success, and it's sold a lot of merchandise. Jimmy is almost out. I think it's time for someone to separate the bloodline and the whole thing, Roman, to go away and do what he needs to do. So I think Randy might be that one that causes the whole thing and makes Roman go away. Randy's the perfect one to do it.
Very well could be, man. Look, but that's just, it's been a big, massive week in general. Like I said, we're kind of recapping back, right? QT resigning at the end of the year, CM Punk debuts, Randy Orton, his return. It's not like WWE wasn't firing on all cylinders beforehand, right? I mean, they were already hot. They're already selling these crazy numbers. They're doing all these, viewership numbers as far as PLEs and revenues and sponsorships. It's just piling up and doing great. And so then the great debate became, hey, AEW's they're taking a lot of shots right now, and they really are. But what does all of this continued momentum mean for AEW? I mean, it's when they basically came on the scene, and I think look, if you disagree with what I'm about to say, tappedoutpod@gmail.com. It's becoming a tougher hill to climb, competing if you're trying to, compete with WWE, because when you started, they were in a bad, and I'm using air quotes, they were in a bad place. But there were a lot of people unhappy with creative, and just across the board, people were like, oh, WWE sucks, and blah, blah, blah. So AEW was brought in as an alternative, and now, WWE's got the hot hand. So Punk and Cody, that was two massive shots. And we've already talked about what we think of, QT, what that loss is going to do. But Cody and Punk were merch movers, as polarizing as both people were. They were discussion points, for your show, good or bad. It didn't matter. But going to your top guys, and by the way, this isn't a shot about the whole disciplinary committee thing. I'm not going down that avenue yet. I'll probably, who knows? I just, so this is not a shot at Bryan Danielson because of the committee and blah, blah, blah. I don't honestly care about that part right here. I think Daniel Bryan was and is a phenomenal wrestler. But we talked about the vision being it's about wrestling and not about characters and things like that. Here's the thing. He ascended to the top, and everybody loves to claim, the yes movement. But I always tell people, yeah, but we have this thing in wrestling where we love to build something up, and then basically the new shiny toy comes along, and we move on to that next, and we see it all the time, by the way. We move along to the next shiny toy, and I felt like the yes movement was that way. Even when Bryan Danielson left because of injury and came back, I never felt like he was at that point of like he was at the yes movement. By the way, I didn't think he was at that point after he won. I think at the peak was his WrestleMania. You got to ride that wave for a couple months, and then I felt like the wave was sliding down after that. So, point being, he's not that Cody, Punk as far as polarizing and, moving the numbers type of a guy. I hope, and I really do hope the rumors are true that they've already signed MJF. Because if they haven't, I know he can't discuss it. He clearly pointed that out in an interview. But Tony Khan better back up a Brinks truck and pay MJF, because that could be, you've lost two of your established megastars for your company, by the way. And I'm using them for that for that company. If you lost your best young, and he's already a star, don't get me wrong. But if you lost MJF, dude, that could just be a massive, devastating blow to that company.
Well, if I had a whiteboard like those NFL guys, and I would draw one of those ratios where John Cena is to WWE, what MJF is to AEW. He's that important to the company. QT leaving is a bigger deal. If MJF isn't signed, QT leaving is a bigger deal than most people realize. Also, the fact that MJF and Bryan Danielson are having to work hurt continually, unless that's a work.
Mm-mm.
But they're working hurt continually to drive the company and drag the company. Where's the other person going to step up? Where's the person going to fill in behind MJF? Where's the person going to step up and be the next MJF? It can't be another 150-pound guy. And I'm not going to hate on these guys, these super independent guys in a mask that paints their face and all this other stuff. People on TV want to tune in and see a good-sized guy beating the hell out of somebody you could believe could beat the hell out of somebody. I mean, we have seen Punishment Martinez. My brain stops sometimes, Nick. You know who I'm talking about. Damian Priest.
Mm-hmm.
He's a big, big man. But when you saw Dirk Galloway next to him, 4 to 5 inches taller. Those are big, big men. People want to see big, big men. People want to see serious athletes. If you keep signing these little guys, you need to find and build these big athletes. You need your own NXT.
So my pushback would be, I don't know so much that the size, it does matter, but it goes back to what we discussed earlier. It's about characters, it's about stories, it's about angles. Because here's the thing. Look, when we're talking about this, if they're pushing towards a wrestling-based promotion, kind of like the New Japan, the Ring of Honor, that kind of stuff, look, we've got a track record for that. We can see the success rates of those companies. I'm not shitting on the levels they've attained, by the way. But Ring of Honor reached a certain level. And because of the way the style was, it peaked, it was done. Like, that was it. The New Japan stuff in America, even when they're doing that, it only gets so much because there's a base for that. Literally to the point, like, I don't know that if you're committing and you double down on that, I would be concerned because, look, there's a report going around that the front runner for Raw now, by the way, full disclaimer, I don't know that I believe any of this, but the report's out there that the front runner for Raw is the WB now. Warner Brothers Discovery, to be full. I mean, Discovery, Warner Brothers. And look, if they put that thing on TBS TNT, does that mean they're all out? They're all out on AEW? Do they move on? Now, by the way, since the report's being mentioned, Disney seems like they were in second for put it on FX. Prime Video was the third, which is super fascinating to me, which I would actually love to death, by the way. And then the fourth was like, hey, maybe USA just keeps it and they put it on Sci-Fi. All right, whatever. But it's like, look, the whole point of that was they, I think, need story character. They got to grow their base and whatever. Because listen, there's already talk of grumblings backstage, and like, you're at a moment now. This is a very, very pivotal time. And I'm not saying it's WCW 2000 or anything like that, but you are at a point where you had the momentum. You never passed them and you didn't beat them. And I'm not saying they're like WCW where they were competitive in that sense, but they had a lot of momentum. They had a lot of stuff going for them. Then all of a sudden, they're hitting. This is, to me, their first real thing where you're going to find out who they're really made of. And they're either going to put their best foot forward and they're going to rebound. And by the way, again, I hate to say this, or they're going to become Impact. I love Impact. I think it's one of the best products nobody knows about on television. But from a visibility standpoint, it is what it is. So are they literally, is that who they're going to become? Are they going to go rise to that point and then just kind of, so you got to squash these grumblings in the back. You got to take care of all your talents. You got to get the ship righted, or you're going to be into a world of hurt. That's my take.
It's not 83 weeks. It's more like 15 minutes.
Well, that was the point. They never beat them in the sense of the word, like really, but I just meant the momentum. It felt like they had a lot of momentum. They were the hot product. The fans were jumping on board and stuff, and now we're seeing that kind of slide, and kind of, start back coming down, and that's the part that's concerning to me, to be honest with you. But look, what does not concern me, Myron, is the quality of T-shirts that you get from our friends over at Pro Wrestling Tees. And this week we were back. Last week we wanted to plug the sale. The sales officially passed, so we couldn't redo it again, obviously. But this week I said, you know what, man, I got one that it's just got to happen. It's got to be the shirt. And this week, that shirt is QT Marshall. Look, I know he's an AEW talent. I get it, but he's not come the end of the year. So go ahead and support. He's actually got some really cool shirts on the store. The link is obviously in the description. The post comes out, on all of our social media as well, plugging it. Go get a shirt, because here's another guy. We always talk about, hey, we love it when guys bet on themselves and double down. And dude's walking away from a pretty stable, a pretty good, thing to bet on himself. And that's what I tell people, okay, if this is you, then double down and support somebody like that who is willing to bet on themselves. And look, he's not the only one, Myron. Word came out, look, we knew about this last week. We kind of brushed over it, but we kind of wanted to make sure we had all of the information before we went and kind of ran with it. Kamille, who we did see at Wrestlecade, always pleasant to see her. Her family's spectacular. They're some of the nicest people around. She's a free agent. Come January, she's a free agent, man. She had a heck of a run in NWA, by the way. 2018, she joined. She won that championship. She won the women's championship at When Our Shadows Fall in 2021. Champion for 813 days. That's some Roman Reigns shit. It really is. That's just crazy insane. And really only recently lost it at NWA 75. She did lose to Kenzie Page Henry, who's doing some phenomenal work there. But now, I think this is her time. We thought it when she signed there. We thought that, but now she's progressed so much. And by the way, here's the crazy thing: she's scary good now, and I still think there's so much untapped potential there that she could be even better.
I've already got 2 8x10s of Kamille on my wall. I've got a third one now. We've known Kamille, since we started doing this, and she was a lingerie football player. We've known her parents almost since we started doing this. Her dad speaks to us every time he sees, and also I'm not talking about just hey, he stops and shakes your hand and talks to us. I was touched by the fact that Kamille stayed at the table of her sponsor, shook my hand, did the autograph, took a picture, of course, for the fee, at her table where she was supposed to be working. And I'm not meaning to say anything bad about Kenzie Page. I was wanting to get Kenzie Page's autograph, but Kenzie Page was running around the floor the entire time she was there. Kamille is a professional. Kamille has the look. Kamille has the demeanor. Kamille is a professional wrestler. Kamille is a professional's professional. I've always thought she deserved to be on a bigger stage. The NWA thing was a good fit for her. Her husband, she met her husband. She has a very good life. Maybe wrestling in the future is not what she's doing. I don't bother her, people, about their future. But I'll tell you what, whatever she wants to do, best wishes, because that is somebody who has worked hard and done whatever it takes. And I have nothing but the utmost respect for her.
And look, she's done some acting now, so she has got some of that under her belt. And listen, if you want to get into acting, WWE is not a bad place to be, because they also are now under the umbrella of a company who has some, people in positions that can help you get those roles as well. Look, whether it be WWE, NXT, AEW, even Impact, she's going to do well. I want to see her get a big time opportunity. Because look, we talked about this a while back about Impact. Look, it's a great place for a lot of guys to work because their scheduling is stable. They do their tapings in bunches, and then you can still go out, take your indie bookings, get a good, good rate on the indies, so you could make some pretty good money with those guys. So I do recommend it. And to be blunt, have I said this yet on the air that they're probably the only promotion I would sign that wasn't by a WWE or AEW, and I mean specifically AEW contract, not the rest of the pieces underneath.
It's a very stable job. It's a very stable wrestling job.
Well, the big thing is it's also like when stable, it's not about the income, but it's also like knowing what dates you're working and where you're going to be, and you can book around that. That's why I say that they're, anyway. Look, speaking of stable, man, something that's consistent every year over on Thanksgiving night, Southern Fried down in Monroe puts on a great show. This is the first year, like, neither one of us could break and get away. Well, because, it's more rare. You, a lot of times you're, you don't get to go.
Atlanta.
Me,
what hit me?
Family hadn't gone yet. They were still here. They were leaving in the midst, so I didn't get to go. Broke my heart. Luckily, however, the video came out. We have got to see it already. Spectacular looking show. I did talk to somebody who was there. Got to get a vibe of it as well, not just watching the video. Nick Halen and Judas, Anarchy versus Southern Fried, title versus title. 58 minutes. Insane. I'm gonna break this into two pieces. One, Nick Halen showed why he is, one of the best in the state, hands down, if not the. I'll make that case on a different show. But he's going out there and he's working with smaller guys, bigger guys, all over, but he goes out there and puts in 58 minutes with Judas, which leads me to Judas. He now has 3 of the, if not the, 3 big belts in Georgia, right? He's got Southern Fried, Southern Honor, and now Anarchy. He's just, by the way, on social media, I tweeted out he should have 4, because if that other place would give him a shot, he should be the champion there too. Just saying. We just talked about him. Wink. So they kind of show you why you can't miss a show, and that's the crazy thing, is you can't miss a show because they're going to pull off something like that on the one show that you're going to like, oh, something came up and I couldn't make it. That's what happens. But kudos, Southern Fried always, look, year after year, always seems like their Thanksgiving show, they make it special because, like, look, if you're going to come out on Thanksgiving, you're going to get something special. So that's it's really, really cool in my book. So
I love those people.
Yeah. And they also are going to give you a little bit of everything, by the way. The grapplers come out and, with Seabolt, and they have Sal versus Sonny, or Sal, Sonny, and Todd in a 6-man. And it was just total entertainment. If you haven't seen it, you got to go check it out. It's just awesome. It's everything I thought and then some. Matt Griffin's on the card. He comes out, runs down like, hey, maybe I'm going to come in and, lease the building, take over. We're going to run action in this building and show you what a real promotion is. There's a face-off with Manders. I'm kind of excited because now it looks like exactly.
Sorry, I'm tired. I'm wearing out. Talk to you about Griffin.
Are we looking at Anarchy, Action, and Southern Fried like in a triangle of, just collision course of those 3 promotions? Hey, we're in. If it is, we're in. The one thing I don't have listed on the notes, I did watch. It looks like JB has officially imploded. Hunter James has turned on his back on Xavier Reyes post they took a loss to Ashworth and Buck. It is what it is, man. Look, we all know you just can't trust. And I told you guys, the guy's a little prick. You can't trust him, and nobody ever wants to listen. But we'll see where this goes and what's in the future of JB.
I'll to him later about something.
And
we'll get to it.
Oh yeah, we'll get there. December 16th, the next show for Southern Fried over in Monroe at the Boys and Girls Club. Put it on your calendar. Check them out. Again, if you need caught up, go to their YouTube channel, check them out, and watch the Thanksgiving show to get caught up. we appreciate getting that out. That was super fast turnaround, dude, and it was really, really great show. And of course, then now we head into, before we get out of here, we're going to talk a little bit about Wrestlecade. But Myron, before we get into Wrestlecade, we also want to tell you, make sure you are subscribing to the channel, youtube.com. The handle's @TappedOutPod. Make sure you're liking the page, subscribing, turn on your notifications, all that good shit. Sign up to become a member behind the paywall. Hey, look, Patreon too. If you're a big fan of the Patreon setup instead, check us out over there. Stories being listed, all that good stuff on a regular basis. If you're just, hey, I'm just a podcast listener, Nick. I don't watch the video. I can't handle all that sexy coming through my screen. I can only handle the voices. That's fine. We're anywhere and everywhere, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast, Amazon Music. Yeah, we're on Amazon Music on the podcast system. That's correct. If it's anywhere and everywhere there's a podcast, subscribe to us, give a 5-star rating and review. We would greatly appreciate that. And now let's talk a little bit about Wrestlecade before we wrap up and go home, Myron. I'll let you start because you got some stories you said you want to talk about. I know.
Well, Hunter James, I am extremely, extremely sorry. That'll come to in a minute. I was worried about Wrestlecade because this is the first time I've been since I quit drinking. It's always a lovely fest. Now, I bought a lot of drinks because I'm a socializer, and also I'm a networker. I'm one of those people who gets in a situation and I meet people. So I bought drinks for a lot of famous people. And Saturday night I was going to close out my tab, and there was a very attractive young lady. There's a very attractive young lady in a revealing outfit had come up to the bar to get a couple of vodka cranberries. As I just put them on my tab, I'm about to close out. Just being nice, Jesus he's a nice fellow too. And we was talking. People get friendly when you buy them drinks. I'm not into
You're just being nice. You're just being a nice guy. Yeah. Conversation starter.
And I dropped, she said she had worked for the NWS. I said, do you know my friend Hunter James? But I couldn't remember Hunter's name because I was very tired and I'd gotten high a couple times during the day. And, our friend Hunter Allen. And I misdropped his name. And she said, Hunter, yeah, I remember him because we had the same last name, our first name, and I refereed at that NWA show. Well, breast and THC tend to confuse your old friend Myron, even when he has the best of intentions. So, Hunter, I'm very sorry for not remembering your last name. I was like, before I got out of that night, it was like a $400 tab.
For a guy who doesn't drink.
Now, I bought quite a few drinks for Abdullah the Butcher because when we were walking to the lobby, Dave was like, hey, Myron, have you ever met Abdullah? That's Dave Wills, probably the most interesting person in the world. And I said, no, I've never met Abdullah the Butcher. And I then spent the next 4 hours sitting and talking to Abdullah the Butcher about Japan, Brody, Foley, and just about everything else Abdullah the Butcher has done. I think somewhere over the course of the time, I almost got talked into writing the Abdullah the Butcher autobiography, but I was not impaired enough to do that. So I had a very interesting weekend. I also followed Dave Wills around taking pictures of him. Danny Birch wanted a picture of Dave. And Dave cut him a promo. I recorded that. Renegade Twins wanted a video with Dave. I recorded that.
I mean, you had your hands full, man. There's a ton of stuff going on up there for sure.
Dave will kill you. He's so active. You met all kind of people too. It was just amazing how much fun we had over those 2 days.
It's always fun, man. Everything. I mean, Tracy and Brian, they do a great job up there. It's never a disappointment, obviously. Look, there was, I don't even know we're not going to dive into it a ton. I know our friend Heath Mulligan over at the Double Drop Kick, he did a audio about it. I listened to it. He messaged us while we were there, and they were like, "Oh, something happened in the bar last night." I'm like, "Dude, I got no idea what you're talking about." We were there for that night, like the entire night, and I'm like, "Dude, I got nothing." So we just kind of like, I was just like, it wasn't a WrestleCade thing. It was in the bar. Whatever. I don't know. It just happened.
I didn't see it.
That's what I said.
11:30. Once again, socializing and networking. That's how I meet some of my best friends, is being in the bar late at night.
Like I said, it was just one of those things, man. Like I said, I didn't hear it, didn't see it, so it wasn't that. I'm not saying it wasn't a big deal. I wasn't there. I didn't hear it. We were right there. I don't know how we missed it. But listen, it's always a great time. It's a great hang. I mean, we joke about it all the time. It's a backdrop to hang out with a bunch of people that we only get to see once or twice a year. The wrestling is kind of the backdrop of it, and it's a lot of cool shit to see, a lot of cool people to talk to, whether it's talents, whether everything. It's just a really cool setup. So we definitely recommend that you check out Wrestlecade on an annual basis. Right there, it starts right after Thanksgiving, the day after, to be sure, exactly, Black Friday. I'm sure tickets will be on sale for next year and stuff like that. So sign them, follow them on social media so you get your stuff right when they drop.
I had a good time. I had a really
You sound like
time.
It sounds like WrestleCade beat the ever-living shit out of you is what it sounds like.
And I'd do it again.
Yeah.
I'd do it again.
Myron is no spring chicken anymore. WrestleCade beat the shit out of him.
I'm getting some of that Randy Orton shit before next year. And you're going to have to rub the greasy lotion on me before we go down to the lobby. And
absolutely, yeah.
I hear what.
Well, man, listen, before you die, we're going to get out of here. You got anything before we get out of here, man?
No.
Well, what's the old saying, brother? If I've got nothing, you've got nothing. What time is it?
It's time to tap out.